And yes, I am speaking in an accent so perfect, so similar to the Postal Dude. Well, actually it's not, but I tried my best. I even tried my best to look similar to him. Don't know if it worked. Speaking of Postal Dude, let's talk about the weapons of Postal 2, shall we? Now, for this very controversial list, only controversial because, well, any mention of weapons is gonna get a few looks, even if it is from a video game, and, well, the game does warn people not to follow it through exactly. Speaking of which, the game itself is, well, over the top. It's a dark humour, an offensive game, but offensive in the sense that it's funny, not offensive in the sense that it's a prick. So, for this list, I'll be judging each weapon by how much power they have, how useful I found them, and simply put, how much I enjoyed using them. So, let's have a look at what's at number 10. At number 10, I have the handgun, or the revolver, or basically any of the smaller guns. Now, the only reason why this is so low down on the list, despite how accurate it is, which is one of the main reasons why it's on the list, because its accuracy is really good compared to other weapons, is simply put, I don't really use it all that often, and most of the time I only use it to fend off dying enemies, and even then it's not particularly great when it's in one-to-one combat or against a swarm of enemies. That said, it is accurate as hell. I actually put it over the M16, which I found to be quite unreliable in how you fire at it. To be fair, the M16 isn't all that bad, but I just didn't find myself interested in it, which is why the handgun I rate higher because of how useful it was, especially when it comes to the final boss where you have to shoot the little Gary Coleman heads, and the handgun is more useful than the M16 when it comes to that matter. In fact, it's more useful than any of the other firing weapons in the final boss. But as I said, against normal enemies, and that's the only why I rate it higher. Rifle. You know, I must admit, using a list to list all my weapons does look a little bit bad, doesn't it? In fact, it looks like something a school shooter would do. Boy, is this video going to get flagged. Yes, I'm not a psychopath at all. I'm just doing this for comedic effect. Let's just talk about the hunting rifle, shall we? So the hunting rifle is essentially the sniper rifle for the game. I'll basically say the downside to it straight away. It's not good against big swarms of enemy that are coming towards you. It is only good for long-range attacks, which is why I rate it higher than handgun, because I found it really useful at clearing away enemies from a far distance, so I can just waddle along and just enjoy myself and do whatever I needed to do, like give a birthday present to my Uncle Dave. I said my Uncle Dave, I meant Uncle Dave as in, well, I meant my as in me speaking on behalf of the Postal Dude. I really shouldn't attempt humour, should I? Speaking of which, I am actually looking a little bit different compared to the first bit because, as I said, I should not attempt humour because I suck at it. I'm only on 29 subscribers. So, the hunting rifle is good at clearing away enemies from a far distance, allowing you to go ahead and complete your mission. However, against up close enemies it's not very useful, and another downside is trying to find ammo for it. Ammo for the hunting rifle is quite sacred, quite scarce. It's hardly anywhere in the game unless you look really hard or you're in an area where hunting rifles are in quite big supplements. But overall, I don't mind it. I think it's very good for what. Double barrel shotgun. Now this is an exclusive weapon to the Paradise Lost DLC, which in my opinion is a lot of fun. In fact, I'd even rate it higher than the Apocalyptic Weekend, which in my opinion is the weakest part of Postal 2 as a whole. That said, the double barrel shotgun is one of the best weapons introduced in Paradise Lost, aside from obviously the joke weapon, which is the dildo, but I can't really show that on screen because YouTube will kill me. Seek hail, YouTube, seek hail. So, the double-barreled shotgun is a long shotgun, which is really useful for taking out enemies. You can kill them in one hit, surprisingly enough, or you can use up a few more hits and they'll die almost instantly. I love the shotguns as a whole, and spoiler alert, there are other shotguns which are much higher than this. It's certainly an alright shotgun. It's not as good as, say, the default shotgun or the sawn off, but it is at least a good weapon for a DLC which certainly lacked in the weapon variety in my opinion, but then again the game already had brilliant weapons, so what else is there to complain about? When it comes to throwing items, I must admit I'm not a big fan of them, mainly because I suck at throwing them. You see, whenever I grab like a grenade or a crotchy grenade, which I almost put on the list just as a joke, it almost feels, I just don't know, I'm not very good at it. I'll grab it and I'll throw it, but I always fear that I'm throwing it too lightly or too harsh, and make it obviously bounce about, which sucks in my opinion. But the Molotov cocktail is slightly different. The Molotov cocktail, as soon as it hits an enemy, will set them alight, and it is brilliant to watch. It's much better than the gas canister, which literally doesn't do much, and you have to be up close to an enemy to light them on fire, which sucks. There's a Molotov, you can set a huge crowd of people on fire and get out while you still can. This is really useful when you're against crowded enemies which are all swarming you. Use this and you've got rid of your swarm straight away. Of course the downside is they'll run into setting you alight, or you'll set yourself alight due to the fact that you are incompetent, like me, at throwing things. One of the things I absolutely love about Postal 2 is the melee weapons, and as we're on the number 6 spot, you'll be seeing quite a few melee weapons pop up. First being the axe. The main reason why the axe isn't higher up is because it's kind of dull looking. I mean, it's a generic axe, for God's sake, it's not anything interesting. But by God, it is enjoyable just to defeat an enemy in one hit. And to be fair, you can take out more than one enemy with the right wing swing, but of course, as I said, it's not an interesting weapon to look at. It's very dull and basic, and for something that is quite hard to catch when you first play the game. In fact, it took me quite a while to find it. Of course, I did eventually find it, and I don't know, it wasn't as satisfying as some of the other weapons, which you'll see in a minute. The Clippers are, of course, a joke weapon, but they're a joke weapon which everyone loves. Who doesn't love slashing someone's head off with a right-wing swash like that? Or you could just do a simple snip. A close shave, to say the very least. In fact, you can cut off body parts here, there and the other way. You can cut off the head, which is a one-hit kill. In fact, cutting any body part in this game is a one-hit kill, technically. Even though technically cutting off an arm and a leg, they can still be alive. Cut off all 4 limbs, they can even still be alive then. But it doesn't make the shears more enjoyable to use. In fact, I use this quite a lot in the game, in the early stages, I should say. And in the early stages, I was able to wipe out huge swarms of enemies just by using this melee weapon alone. I didn't even need to pick out my gun just to defend myself. In fact, I didn't lose that much health by just using it. That's how useful these melee weapons truly are. The shotgun. The shotgun is one of the only default weapons that I can truly say I absolutely enjoy using. You can get it literally straight away if you plan your way of getting items early on in the game carefully. In fact, I was able to get mine in my playthrough almost immediately after a dog killed a man who held a shotgun. This allowed me to get a shotgun for free, and it was with relatively ease. And of course the shotgun is really good at getting one-hit kills. You can shoot their heads off, or you can just shoot their bodies. Of course, if you shoot their bodies, they can obviously still be alive, which can be a bit of a pain. Meaning you have to waste more bullets on them. That said, it deals a huge amount of damage and therefore is great to use. Of course, my only problem is the shotgun almost looks weird when it's in its default model, because it almost looks too large in a way whenever you see it lying down somewhere, and it kind of dull looking. That's once again my only complaint. So of course, some of the usefulness with some melee weapons is the fact that they can be thrown, and that's why I love the machete so much. The machete can be thrown about and can slice people apart. Of course, you can also quickly slash them, which is an added bonus. You see some of the other weapons you have to hold and then swing, which is one of the main reasons why the jackhammer didn't make it on the list. It almost did, but I felt it just wasn't all that interesting to use, and considering I rarely use it unless it was against zombies, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. Machete, on the other hand, you can use on practically anyone, and it is useful. And if you're in a tight situation where they're so far away, you can just throw it at them and it will slice them apart. Of course, there's another weapon which you can throw and slice people apart, which is even better, even if you have to hold it. The scythe. As I've mentioned in my previous part, you can throw it, which is really useful, and you can hit people with it quite quickly. Well, I say quite quickly, you have to charge your hits sometimes, but of course you could just simply click it and the same effect will happen. But what makes the scythe better than the machete is the fact that you can literally cut people in half. That is literally the only reason why I rated it higher. Because you can cut people in half, you can literally take out huge chunks of enemies. In fact, you can have 5 enemies swarming you at once, and one swipe will kill all of them. And that's how the scythe is better than the machete. You can throw it and you can slice 3 people in half if they're shooting at you from a distance, which also makes it quite useful. Of course, you have to be wary of tight corners, because throwing it can be a little bit problematic when it gets jabbed between 2 walls. That said, the scythe is one of the iconic weapons of Postal 2. In fact, it's even on the front cover. That's how iconic it is and how brilliant of a weapon it truly is. And certainly the best melee weapon of them all. Now, one of the running themes you may have noticed by now is the fact that I love one-hit kill weapons, because, let's be honest now, they're just awesome to use. Yeah, they're cheap, but they're awesome to use. And as I already mentioned earlier, I mentioned there are 2 shotguns which are better than the double-barreled one. That being the sawn-off shotgun. The sawn-off shotgun is just amazing to use. One hit and your enemies will be blasted into itty-bitty pieces. It's a bit like the scythe in a way, where you can shoot people and 3 of them can be hit at once, making it incredibly useful against swarms of enemies. It's also useful against zombies because you blow their heads off, but not only that, you can blow their enemies or the zombies behind them apart. So really useful. You can get rid of the army men in quick ease. And then we get onto the final boss. You see, after using a handgun to blow off the Gary Coleman heads, you can then use a sawn-off shotgun and finish this boss off in only a matter of 3 hits. 3 hits and he's dead. This weapon is so overpowered. It is so overpowered. It is also incredibly rare, which is why you hardly get it unless it's like really late on in the game, or if you're really good at finding treasures, then, well, you can find it quite early on. Regardless, it is one amazing weapon to use. I absolutely love this weapon, and whenever I have it equipped, whenever I get it, that is, I will always have it equipped, because it is amazing. Just like me.
So,